but I think I've met everyone here. For those that don't know me, I think you might be the only one, ma'am, that doesn't know me. I'm Eric Labatt with the Medical Center Development Office here with the university. So first of all, I know many of you have come a long way to be here, especially through bad weather and cold, so thank you. And if you're like me, coming a long way includes the western suburbs. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. The topics that we're talking about, Ellen has worked really hard on, and will continue to do so on behalf of the Alumni Association. So it's important to us that you care enough to be here, so thank you for that. And to start, before I turn it over to Ellen, and it's going to drive him crazy because we're going to have to pass the mic, but it would be, I think, helpful for the couple that we have met for the first time if we could just walk around the room and introduce ourselves for everyone else in the room, if you're okay with that. You don't have to put it on.
Okay, I'm David Whitney. I'm a graduate of 1980 in the medical school. I also got an MBA in 78. I was in the MSTP program and bailed with the MBA instead of pursuing the PhD to its conclusion. I practice dermatology in the Chicago area, and I've been active in the association since 2001, I believe.
I'm Lambia Agnostopoulos. I got my SB in 1957, MD in 1961. So we'll have a big celebration, I guess, in 2 years. And I did my fellowship also. Returned to the University of Chicago to complete my fellowship in cardiology. And I've been, the bonds are getting stronger and stronger as the time passes.
Hi, I'm Jill Doherty. I'm privileged to work with our Biological Sciences Division alumni and also our Pritzker alums. And my territory in terms of alumni relations coverage is from Ohio to Oklahoma and the Canadian border through Texas. And did not myself go to the University of Chicago, but I have some family legacy.
I'm Bruce Becker. I practice in Waltham. I do internal medicine and gastroenterology, and this is my first year on the Alumni Council. I graduated in '76, and I think I was the guinea pig for the Day in the Life program for the group.
My name's Bob Dargazi. I received my MD in 1977, practiced cardiology until 2005, and retired in Columbia, Missouri. Now I write books on investing for physicians. And I'm president-elect of the Alumni Council.
I'm Susan Levine. I graduated from medical school in 1959. Went to college, graduated in 55. And I am a psychiatrist in private practice in River Forest, Illinois. I didn't have much to do with the University of Chicago, but I got activated when this big brouhaha over the Urban Health Initiative and the big stink that was raised about the University of Chicago dumping patients. And that bothered me a lot. And it sort of drew me in my interest. And also, we had our 50th class reunion in June. And that was a very heartwarming event. So this is my first foray into volunteering anywhere, ever.
We're glad to have you. Lucky to have you. Thank you.
So I'm Ellen Clark, and I know most of you. I don't know you, but I work for the Alumni Association. I've been there since January, so I'm still new in a way as well and still learning. The presentation I'm going to give, since there's such a small group of us, I'd rather just have it be conversation. Feel free to ask questions at any time and jump in, as most of you probably know more than I do. So Chicago Partners is what we're going to talk about in this particular session, which is a suite of programs that we're very proud of. It's to facilitate student alumni mentoring relationships and also be able to engage the breadth of medical and biological sciences alumni. So we'll get started. The program, from what I understand, it did start a number of years ago before I came here, but it was a way for us to leverage all of you and your education and your experience and be able to help shape current students as they get ready to enter the medical fields. the programs consist of the first two, which are very structured, have been in place for a few years, and the last we're still putting into a structure and hoping to formalize in the coming years. We'll go ahead and start with Day in the Life. And I am going to actually ask Dr. Whitney to jump in from time and again during the presentation, because he has been an integral part of starting Day in the Life in particular, and Chicago Partners as a whole. So the program was created after strong feedback from some of our Pritzker medical students, wanting to be able to experience the workplace before they're actually just thrown out there after graduation. So I'll ask Dr. Whitney to talk a little bit about how that happened.
Well, as far as history goes, I'm going to plead over 50 to some degree, so my recollection of the details of it is not entirely perfect, but I do remember that ever since I've been involved with the council, my whole thing has been to try to engage everybody involved, so to get the alumni engaged and to broaden our outreach to them, and then to improve the students' recognition of what the Alumni Association does for them. And my thinking all along was that the more that you get interaction between these two groups, the more that's going to happen. And then going from that, at some point we had some programs, and I think we still do have them, whereby the alumni were engaged in single-day events of panels that would interface with the students. And I went to a couple of these and took home from that the impression that there was a great deal of interest in, on the part of the students, in careers outside of academia, and a tremendous amount of frank ignorance on what that was like. So that's where I think that the whole idea started brewing of, well, why can't we generate some interaction between our undoubtedly distinguished practicing dermatologists, practicing physicians, and not necessarily of the usual type, but any kind of thing outside of academia primarily, so that they could be exposed to life beyond the ivory walls. And so that's what the genesis was, that we were going to try to find alumni that were willing to host students for a week of shadowing them. And, you know, we had to deal with the logistics of when can you find time for the students. That was probably the main thing. And so they have to be somewhat motivated because they're sacrificing their spring break to do this. But, you know, the level of interest on the part of the alumni was immediate and gratifying. Generating a sustainable marketing effort towards the students has proven to be somewhat problematic, but I think we're getting a handle on that now. They've obviously got a lot on their plate, but, you know, the first time around we got a large number of interested students, especially with the younger years, so even first and second years. And then it's been kind of up and down as to who's involved, and that was my perception, is that we're just not getting a clear message established as to this being available, because there's no doubt that the feedback from both parties has been extremely positive. I'm sure you have some more on that. Yeah. But that's basically what the genesis of the program was.
Thank you. Well, also I wanted to mention that while we do focus the majority of these programs on our medical students, we do want to be able to bring in the biological sciences alumni and students. Day in the Life is one of the ways that we're hoping to be able to do that. It's been kind of in our plans for a few years, and we're hoping to be able to do that this coming spring. Of course, it's not cookie cutter like it is for the medical students. They don't have a spring break, so we're trying to figure out what the best combination of schedules for both the alumni and the students will be. Hello.
Well, just to kick in there, we do actually have some experience with the BSD people participating. Everybody's been a little bit slapdash, so we're trying.
Right, we're trying to do more of it, so, and have. Sure.
Grants, I know how many med school grants there are. How many from the Division of Biological Sciences, like what's
There's just under 5,000 BSD alumni, and that would include PhD and the master's programs. So, so total we're just approaching 10,000 in the Alumni Association.
And that includes residents and fellows.
Yes, residents and fellows, faculty. We include all of them as members, but just as far as alumni, it's about 10,000. So we'll talk just briefly about how the program actually is put together. In the fall, the Alumni Association staff works to recruit volunteers such as yourselves to commit to the program, and also further on and into the winter, we'll create a menu that will have a description of the experience, where it is, who it's with, and try to put that on paper and online so that the students can view that. And then between about December and January, we'll send out an email to the students asking them to apply, which they'll do so this year right through their own Pritzker website. And they'll submit that online. And then once we get all of those in, a selection committee with Dr. Whitney, my colleague Holly Haddon, Dr. Shalini Reddy, will get together and they'll make those matches. That's based on the student's preference, and then also Dr. Reddy's knowledge of the students and who will benefit from which relationship with an alumnus. And then we'll let the students communicate with the alums and make their arrangements. And then after the experience, we encourage them to keep in touch and the students to send thank yous to all of you. And then we do send a follow-up survey as well to the students, and of course ask our alumni for feedback. And so some of those shadowing opportunities, this is just from 2009, so I'm going to ask Dr. Whitney again to jump in and talk a little bit about his knowledge as far as what's been offered in the past.
Oh, dear. Well, actually, I'm not sure I can think of any that are going beyond what I see up here. Okay, well, it's hard to keep track of, but certainly diversity is evident even on this. One of our goals is to try to find more of the last item there. Alternative careers, I think, are increasingly of interest to the medical students outside of the bounds of normal clinical practice. And so the most subscribed option is definitely in that realm of biopharmaceutical and medical device venture capital. Yeah, well, I think...
Honestly, that is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Well, would you like to elaborate on why that is?
Because you should be a goddamn doctor.
Oh, okay.
Through this. I'm just surprised that that's the most...
Well, one way I would explain it is that it's not like there's a huge number that are applying to it. So when I say most subscribed, it might mean 5 people competing for 1 or 2 spots. The thing is that it's an area where, the university is recruiting into the class people with more diverse and more technical backgrounds than I think was historically the case.
Some of those already PhD people.
Yeah, yes. Many of these are MD, PhD people. And, the PhD crowd, it certainly is very well aware of the fact that, the expansion of the national underwriting of research is either flat or contracting, and so they're looking for other ways to leverage their skill set. But also, even on the MD side, I think the interest is higher than you might have anticipated, but it also reflects that it's a select small group that is interested in that kind of thing, but they just glom onto this opportunity because there's just nothing like that in the curriculum at all that they can have an exposure to.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they're committed to it for the rest of their life.
No, although I would say there was a very high level of that. From my exposure, the ones that were going into it, they had already kind of taken down that track or at least had their eye on it.
Well, traditionally in medicine, one of the troubles with traditional medical training is you're really committing yourself 2 or 3 years to a field before you know what it is. I mean, you've decided you're going to go into medicine or surgery without even really knowing, I remember one of my classmates actually had a previous PhD, came here and committed to be a neurosurge resident 4 years before he was going to do it. In other words, came in first year, committed to actually, they accepted him as a neurosurge resident 3 years down the line. I mean, what could you possibly know about the field in those things? And we're always 2 years ahead, committing ourselves to whatever fellowship path we want before you really know what it is.
And to your point, and to Dr. Whitney's earlier point about the age of the students that actually end up being interested in this program in particular, they do skew younger. I think last year we had a few first years involved in the program, which is not ideal for us because we want them to have a little more training before they're, seeing patients and shadowing and seeing patients. But they are earlier in their career, so a lot of this is just exploration.
I had a first year, and I think it worked out fabulously.
Yeah.
I think I was just surprised at how much the person seemed. I was shocked that anyone would get that much out of spending time with me. But,
enough to write a whole article about it, right?
I think younger is better because you really don't know what these fields are, and medicine now is a moving target. I mean, you're still a medical school, so you're really training people in hospital medicine. It ain't in hospital medicine anymore. We're realists. In Massachusetts, none of us admit our own patients to a hospital anymore. They're all taken care of by hospitals. I've lost that whole skill set of taking care of patients in hospitals. It's been more than 6 years since I've written an order in a hospital, unless something goes wrong with one of my.
Now that's pathetic that I, as a dermatologist, have done more hospital work than a GI guy.
Right, but the world is changing, so they're coming out hospital-based. But really, if most of them go into a practice situation, it's going to be in practice in an office-based setting, an outpatient setting. So I think the earlier the exposure, the better.
That's really good.
I agree.
I'd just like to add on here for this coming year, I'm very excited about a new opportunity we're going to have. We have a core of people at MD Anderson in Houston, and interestingly, on 3 continuous floors in a corner office sit Pritzker grads in different areas of specialty. So we have a pancreatic cancer specialist, we have a stem cell specialist, and then a transplant specialist. And what they're talking about doing is creating a week-long opportunity for a student to come in and get not just one very specific segment, but sort of an overarching view of what's going on in terms of sort of translating the research they're doing. No.
He's a University of Texas.
Oh, okay. So I just offer that as a possibility when you're hearing or are aware of people that might be in a position to offer. I think getting a group together, particularly for the younger students, will be helpful if they're, for example, thinking about that whole area of specialty.
So then also just geographically where the opportunities are offered. Dr. Becker mentioned that he was a guinea pig for Day in the Life, and that was on the East Coast because last year was our first year to actually offer experiences on the East Coast. So you'll see that we did have 2 in Boston, including Dr. Becker and then also Dr. Renee Mora. You'll see that it's evenly matched between Chicagoland and California. That's mostly because of, obviously, our proximity to Chicago and also our colleague, Holly Haddon, that I mentioned earlier, who actually works for the Alumni Association but lives in California and works with alumni there. And then also we had one in Arizona, which was Dr. Arnie Kalika, who is one of our vice presidents of the Alumni Association. Oh, and sorry, just one more thing to note actually about that is that it's sometimes helpful because the students who their families live in these areas, they can travel out and see their family and then also do the shadowing experience, which I believe Dr. Becker, your student, did that. Yeah, and so they can stay at home, see their family, and then also have this opportunity.
It's in a perfect world because I know that there's the Office of Student Life that Bill McDade is a part of at the hospital, and Dr. Albanus may know quite a bit about that. But we're trying to work with them because in a perfect world, if we get this right, and there are 88 to 100 med students at any time per class per se, our goal would be that all of them would have a mentoring opportunity within the first 2 years of their program. So as you think through what David and Ellen are speaking about, to the degree that you can recommend your colleagues, because we're getting to the point now where more students are interested than we can line them up against relative to alumni. And Ellen will get more into that. But so the breadth of programming and the number of students that are asking for it and the diversity of geography is something that we're really going to try to wrap our arms around within the next 6 to 8 months.
You're asking for something like that would be helpful if we really do with our alumni who are in our area.
Yes.
At my 30th reunion a few years ago, I was shocked to find out one of my classmates lived around the corner.
Yeah.
He lived there for 25 years, and I had no idea. He didn't come to the reunion. I was blessed. But, so it would be very helpful if we want more alumni input.
Exactly.
These
And it's
little geographic areas, someone in charge of the area, and let's go meet the alumni.
exactly. And Jill for the Midwest, Ellen mentioned Holly Haddon on the West Coast, Jim Pompicelli in the East, along with myself, will be sort of guiding that process. Our challenge has been relative to confidentiality. All of you have to opt into allowing your names to be shared outside of university purposes. Always a lawyer. But, we're getting smarter about how we deal with it. And a number of the communications that are upcoming, we haven't started it yet because there's been a variety of communications on many different topics lately that haven't been focused on this one. But as we start to communicate day in the life more broadly, of course, we have access, and we'll put an ask in that email or mail piece that will allow you to indicate to us whether or not we can share your information. If the more people that check that yes, obviously, then I can start to group lists together geographically for people so that you'll know exactly who's down and around the corner. It's a great point, though.
So Dr. Whitney mentioned about the experiences that the students have, and that although it is a small group, we had 15 for 15 matches last year. It's really high touch and high quality, and the students get a lot out of these experiences. One of the questions we asked in the email survey this year was, would you recommend it to another student, which I think is a really powerful question to ask in any survey. And as you can see, the students said, yes, of course. This provides such an amazing connection for this student in particular. And the exposure that they got to the different practices was something that they wouldn't be able to experience anywhere else. This student talks about how proud it made him or her feel after the shadowing, and to say that they spent time with someone who was also trained at the U of C, they're more proud of their training. And I think that's also very powerful. And then also saying that they would love to participate when they become a physician. And that's just one of the main goals of the program, that they'll want to in turn be engaged as an alumnus or alumna. And finally, this one I put up here because it shows, like we were talking about with Jill has this experience coming in Texas, that you can do something different with the program. You can engage your colleagues, whether they're alumni or not, and really give the student a broad perspective of the practice that you work in, the hospital, clinic, or whatever working environment you're in. So I think that that's really helpful as well. And Dr. Whitney, do you have anything to add to any kind of feedback you've heard from students?
Well, they're always going to be polite, but I had nothing but good experiences in myself, and I'm sure Bruce can comment too, to the point where I'm still engaged. So, every parent has his favorites. So my favorite was actually the one that's not going into my specialty, did not go into my specialty. A charming lady, June Matsui, who is now a second year, and I'm sure the tiniest person in an orthopedic residency in the United States. She weighs 100 pounds dripping wet, I would guess. But just a fabulous student, and is now at UCSF, and I had a dinner with her just last fall when I was out there visiting my son. So, there's nothing like being engaged with incredibly bright, energetic, dynamic young people to make you feel younger, or maybe older at some point. But no, she's terrific, and the other ones have been equally charming, and nothing but positive feedback that I've got. And they're just a lot of fun to have around. I mean, I personally in my office have family practice or internal medicine residents all the time. But they cannot hold a candle with extremely rare exceptions to the people that are being sent out in this program.
That's great. And I know that Dana's son, I believe her name was, who shadowed Dr. Becker, she actually did a full write-up of her experience that was in the Pritzker Pulse last spring, the spring-summer graduation issue. And she just described just how amazing the experience was for her. So that was really fantastic to see.
That's what I mean. I think starting very young, young in your career, young age, I think is important. And I think the other side of the thing that's important is this is not a stressful experience. The first thing she did when I got there, I said, look, there's no grade. The schedule is set by you. If you feel it's useless for you to be here, I'm not going to tell anyone you didn't show up. No.
Although we hope you would tell us. We would hope you would tell us.
Tell us, not Pritzker.
Right.
But, I think it's important that it be no stress.
Yeah.
This is really observational. This is what I do for a living. This is how I approach medicine. And at the same time, you teach by, I teach by asking a lot of questions. And I give you my own work. And here you should enjoy that. But I think it's important that it be no stress. And it doesn't have to be 9 to 5, 8 to 6. I mean, she wanted to do a family, and I said, well, I also do endoscopy, so I said, would you like to tag along to do some procedures? She had a great morning for colonoscopy. I think it's important to be no stress because it's really informational for them. I mean, remember, they know nothing. And they think they want to be an internist, or they think they want to be a venture capitalist or whatever. But they really know nothing. And this is the time to get exposed to
There's probably one thing they do know, and that's that the White Sox are better to root for than the Red Sox, but it's a debate for a different day.
To your
We're
point,
Chicago. We like Louis.
Why? Yeah, I don't know why they always talked about the Boston curse. I mean, you guys haven't won anything ever in your Vikings.
Hey, we won the World Series just 3 years ago.
Yeah, the White Sox win, but tell the truth. Isn't the White Sox Stadium Comiskey Park? Isn't it always empty? I mean, no one goes to a White Sox game.
I've never been.
I
Can't
have.
say.
And it is cellular field, just for the record.
Dr. Levine, you were going to say something.
May I ask, do you ever have a problem with patients consenting to have a student?
Oh, I always ask them first. The patients, I've done a lot of teaching. I always say, look, I need you to do me a favor. If you want to do it, fine. If you don't, but
Do they ever say no?
Yeah,
No?
yeah. 2 out of 100.
I'm speaking as a psychiatrist. I'm pretty squeamish about having another person in the room.
Yeah, well, that's a whole bunch of legal issues, even separate from the usual legal issues.
Yeah, I would love to mentor a student, but I can't ask them. I can't ask them to sit in. I wouldn't ask the patients. I wouldn't put them in there.
Well, there's all sorts of layers of politics, and I do a lot of teaching, but I also work for a hospital, an academic hospital. They really wanted to formalize things with a letter from the dean, of this school to the letter from the dean of Harvard Medical School to, I ignored that completely. But that's how I teach, but, it's absurd. I'm not letting the student do it. They're not writing in the chalk. They're not laying on hands. They're observing.
Well, to that point, too, because there's so much of your practice that probably, and I'm guessing, I'm not a physician, that has absolutely nothing to do with the delivery of care or the practice of medicine. Are there other parts of your work that are important for the students to see and observe that may not necessarily be a direct patient?
Absolutely. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm hogging this, but I'm a primary care doctor, so I'm the only PCP here. Allegedly wearing short supply. We are. I think it's very important they see what we go through. And Massachusetts is the worst state of all. We have 2 types of care in Massachusetts: Medicare and managed care. And you have never seen, you can't imagine what it's like to have 100% of your practice involved in managed care. I mean, you're up to your eyeballs in prior medicine, authorizing consults for people seeming like a criminal if you want to get paid for your work. I mean, I think it's important that they see that.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, and also to your point, one of the other things about this program that's great is, especially when it's an experience that's outside of Chicago, they'll often stay with alumni in their homes, and we encourage you to do that because then they can see the work-life balance. And we had an experience last year with a student, her name was Muzu, and she just had a fabulous time with this doctor out in California, and she wrote this thank you note to him and sent us a copy of it, and she said, I had such a great time going for a run with you on the beach and, just spending time with you and your family. That's the kind of thing that is helpful for them to see as well. So that's a good point. And we were just, talking about this, but I chose this one because I think this is key for us to be able to offer the alumni this experience that they can learn from, you all can learn from the students as well. So unless there's anything else we want to say about Day in the Life, I'll jump right in with residency interview hosting. This is medical schools and medical alumni associations across the country. And it's a program that we ask alumni to host our students, our fourth-year students, in their homes as they are completing their residency interviews. Obviously, this eases the financial burden on the student, and it also offers another way for alumni to mentor these students who are more soon going to be in the workforce. This is another program that we identify alumni throughout the year as potential hosts, and then in the fall, starting about the end of September, we will talk to the students, let them know about this opportunity, send them an email, and again have them fill out a form online requesting a host in the city that they're going to be interviewing in. And then we'll go ahead and contact the host, and then we put you in touch right away with the student, let you make the arrangements, and hope it all goes well.
So what are the average number of interviews that folks see for their
average number of interviews? I don't know the average. I know that it can be as many as 15. We had one student that I'm going to touch on a little later who actually had 8 different hosts last year. They really used the program to the full potential.
The reason I asked is because like one of the previous talks, somebody said people will go to 10 or 15 or 20 different places. In my opinion, most people need to go a little bit more. Anything above 5 or 6 is really a waste of everybody's time. So I think that the one thing that you folks could do is if somebody says they want to go to 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 places, you could help them whittle down the number of serious programs that they would like to apply to college. We'll go to 10 or 15 is a waste of everybody's time.
I would just interject, I was just with some students taking a literature having a conversation with my offering, and a student, a fourth-year student in particular, in neuro specialty, told us that they went to programs, and I usually know it, and I guess it's the nature of that program, competitive and difficult, and I don't know how that translates. I've never realized that.
These are people who, when they apply to college, are applying to 20 to 25 colleges. When they apply to medical school, applying to 20 to 25 medical schools. I mean, it's just an absurd waste of money. And it's a whole industry. And that's the way they see it, that there's competition for slots, and the more they apply,
the better chance. To Jill's point, I heard the same thing, that it's dependent on specialty. If it's very, very specific, they'll apply to every single one of those programs in the country because it is so competitive. But I know for a fact that I was just actually at it, that the Pritzker staff actually does a whole meeting just devoted to the residency interview process. They had a panel of the faculty. So I'm sure that I didn't stay for the entire meeting, but I'm sure they touch on that, and that's a really good point to kind of steer them towards really focusing on what they want.
Yeah, because if somebody applies for 50 places, that means they're willing to accept their 50 choice. And I would want to go to some places.
Right.
50 choice.
Exactly.
Anyway, I think they could do it.
Well, the saying in dermatology is, what's the best derm residency program? The answer is whichever one you get into. But, I think the point is well taken, but,
I think you'd be able to do it.
yeah, in fact, I was just going to say maybe there should even be a limit on how many we offer these people, but maybe not if people are willing to host them, I guess.
I don't know how you physically fit that many in to the time frame that you have to do it to begin with,
Right.
unless they're all local. So there may be, to your point about self-direction, better direction, there may be some logistical challenges that will inhibit them from seeing that many as well. But we'll try to keep track of it. It's a good question. I'll get some statistics, and we'll share those with you.
Things have changed so much. When I went to high school in New York City, public school, we were allowed to apply to only 4 colleges.
I narrowed my son to 5, by the way, so same theory.
Your outlier, your 2 pretty sure bets, and your safety.
That's it. And you couldn't even slip money to the people to let you apply to a 5th one. You just, that was it.
Yeah.
And now kids apply 20, 25 schools.
I had a friend in college that applied to, I think, 20 med schools, and she didn't get into one. So it kind of tells you, that they need to be realistic about what they're doing.
Well, and to Bob's point, if you focus, you might be able to spend more time being a better candidate.
The top ones and mopping off the bottom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great point.
So, and then, if the alumnus is available to host, we'll put the student in touch with them, have them make the arrangements, and then ask you to host the student for the duration of their stay. It's usually just a couple days while they're in town for the interview. And these requests really start, like I said, the end of September and go through February. So we'll be working on this program for a while. Some of the outcomes of this program, as we said, it saves the students time and money. It provides a personal connection, and they hopefully will gain a mentor as well. And for alumni, it's another way for you to engage with the university and the Alumni Association. It's a way for you to learn about what's going on at campus straight from the student, and then also another way for you to become a mentor. Last year, we had our largest number of requests that we know of so far. We had about 70 requests, and like I said, that could have been multiple requests from one student. We had 30 alumni participating as hosts, and with about a 44% fulfillment rate. And that doesn't actually take into account the instances where we did find a host but the student already made alternative arrangements, so there's a little bit of margin for error there. And I also mentioned that we had a student that had 8 different hosts and some really good experiences with those hosts. We already have received 2 requests this year, and we fulfilled one, and we're hoping to fulfill another in Seattle. So be ready. We'll be calling on you. And so now unless we have anything else to say about the hosting.
One of the things I'd like to say is that we were trying to work on demonstrating down to this to get the message to students that was getting involved. And that's really, it's important. And I've sort of seen the pluses and the minuses of that. When the student signs up and then doesn't show up, sort of not in the middle there.
Right.
And so I think that's sort of part of the holistic learning that I was talking about. Student participates, so there's an expectation that alumni have because of communication. Something we can't control.
And the Pritzker staff is really pushing on that. They've really pushed the students to be responsible. And if something comes up and they're not going to do the interview, or they find other arrangements, that they need to let us know, they need to let their host know, and that they need to send a thank you afterwards. That's really important to us because we know it's important to you. And we appreciate your help in this program more than we can say. So we want that to be conveyed through the students.
So we spend a lot of time briefing.
Right, we do.
Briefing them to make sure that they understand the importance of all of that.
We set expectations right from the start. So the other mentoring opportunities, which was the third piece of the Chicago Partners kind of suite of programs, is actually comprised of a number of things right now. The first is the Alumni Careers Network. That is online. It's the University Alumni Association's website, and they are kind of relaunching this online community, and it's going to be on alumniandfriends.uchicago.edu. This time it's going to be a lot more beneficial for all of you because you'll actually be able to list yourselves by specialty, whereas you weren't able to before. And this way our students can connect better with you. And as soon as that is officially launched, we'll be pushing that out to our alumni and to our students to log on, put your information on, and hopefully make a connection with someone. The one-on-one interactions with students, sometimes if we just get a request from someone who just graduated and they say, for instance, one we had just a few months ago was a student who graduated and was going to be moving out to California, and she reached out to Holly and said, is there anyone I can connect with out there? And so Holly put her in touch with a few people she knew that would be available. So that's something that we can do. It's something we'd like to build on. We can't do it all. There's not that many of us, but we try as hard as we can to put you in touch with those students. And then the last piece is on-campus lectures. We do have some. We had a Benfield lecture this week, which Dr. John Benfield named, and he had
Dr. Eugene Blackstone?
Dr. Eugene Blackstone gave the lecture, and that was right here on campus, so that's another way to get in touch. And I'll let Dr. Whitney talk about another lecture series we've been discussing and trying to formalize.
Yeah, well, one of the nice things about working on the Alumni Council is that we now have a development office that kind of you can brainstorm with, and then they have to do the job. As I mentioned, I think my feeling is that the sooner we get the students engaged with the Alumni Association, the more likely they'll stay that way. And so the first and second years, first years tend to be maybe not so much, according to Dr. Becker, so focused, I think, on becoming a medical student and taking care of that business that we don't think we can fit into their curriculum necessarily. But by the second year, we figure they've got their feet a little bit, and the thought would be, well, the two things we came up with, and she's made some reference to it, really, was making a better use of the internet to engage and get interaction between alumni and students. We just really haven't tapped into that at all, I don't think, and there's so much potential there for mentoring, but we really are sort of at the nascent period of trying to figure out how best to structure that. More straightforward, I think, is to take advantage of our illustrious alumni to try to develop a lecture series that, again, may address what's out there beyond the ivory tower. So we would not be doing this from an academic standpoint, but more like to show career options to the students on an ongoing basis. So if you're looking for some place to park some money, we'd love to name a lectureship after you. But right now, I think that the main focus is trying to figure out where in the year we can do this, whether we can do 3-a-year, 2-a-year, but to fit it into the curriculum.
And that's a way for us. I mean, these programs are about students coming out to you, and this is a way for us to bring you into campus and come right into the students' backyard so that they can experience things without, flying to Boston.
Well, one of the things I thought about when I was in Dandelion was, can you generalize? First thing I thought you should do is filter your membership by specialty. So you really learn to push the button, you know, who's primary care internist, who's primary care nutrition, this, that. And maybe what you can do is like a day sometime, if physicians would want to travel here, is let's spend a day telling the students what a day in your life is like, traditional practice. Maybe they can be exposed to people from 10 different geographic areas. Because, primary care in California or Michigan may not be the same as primary care in New York or Massachusetts. And maybe you can reach a whole bunch of students that way more than, spend a week here, they can't possibly do it. How many physicians would be willing to come, I don't know, but I think it's worth doing.
Definitely.
And to do the hours conveniently, you don't have to stay in a hotel and fly in and out the same day. jump ahead, you know, I think you have to ask yourself, what are medical schools becoming?
Mhm.
You know, what does it mean to be an academic medical center now? You know, do we have to adapt to the realities that we're living in forces that say we need more primary care? So I think we have to, you know, think about that. And one of the great strengths of the University of Chicago, I think my colleagues are going to take there, is even though it's an extremely academic institution, you come out a well-trained clinician. Is that true of my opinion? I mean, I was so disappointed when I went to Boston. I thought I was going to the Mecca of medicine, you know, and I found myself much better trained and capable than my colleagues, I thought. And I didn't appreciate that while I was here.
And students would appreciate that message.
You know, so I think, you know, that's a great strength of this university, to come out clinician, not just an academic, come out with both, and just have to build on that.
Great.
Well, I
But
made
also have a strategy for primary care. I mean, I think it's very clear, no matter what happens in the healthcare system, there's going to have to be incentives to medical school to produce more primary care. And yeah, as you know, you were at the Washington meeting.
Right.
You know, there's a whole new medical school in Florida based on you're going to have to do primary care in order to get into this medical school, period.
Right.
And I think you have to think about that.
Part of their interview process.
You know, cut in on that, because they're probably going to fund things like that. I mean, it's inevitable.
Well, I have a question, Ellen. Do we still have, you know, I made reference to how the nascent thinking that led to the Day in the Life was based on these on-campus, I think they called it Career Day. Do they still have that? They had, at one time, I think it was started with the third years, and then it was expanded to second, third, and fourth. Are they still doing that? Because it would typically be composed of panels of a mixture of faculty and alums.
I think they do still do that. We haven't been involved with it recently.
Right. Well, Dr. Reddy would probably be the one that does that.
Yeah, and we are.
But it's somewhat analogous to what you were referring to. I mean, it's logistically difficult in the sense that how much can you accomplish in one day? You know, but the way the format was before, that there would be, I think, maybe a half a dozen different options at any one time, and then the day was divided up into 3 or 4 times, so you could sit on 2 panels out of however many there were and get a lot of input on the things that were most interesting to you as a student.
One part of trying to formalize this and offer more opportunities like that is for us to continue to engage and work very closely with our colleagues at Pritzker, both their staff and their faculty. So you'll see us bringing them in more often and working more closely and inviting all of you to more things as we keep doing that. We're right at 9:30. The president, President Zimmer will be talking at 9:45 upstairs in the auditorium. So if you have any more questions for myself or Dr. Whitney, let us know. Otherwise, we'll let you break, use the restroom, get something to drink, and we'll see you for the next session at 10:45.
I just wanted to say thank you to Eric, Will, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The efforts that they've put in just in the past few months that I've been working with them are really amazing. And Dr. Whitney, thank you as always. I mean, we've known you for a while. These 3 phases of meeting, I think they're really turning this office around. I think it's great for everyone, and it will be great for our students. So,
Thank you.
Bravo.
We're working hard to match your work, so.